It's the radio guy, Mike Prince. Welcome to another episode of the Mike Prince Show here at the Open Mic Broadcast Network. Of course, our social media handles for Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter are all at the Mike Prince Show. The YouTube channel is Open Mic Broadcast Network, and our 24-hour dial and message line, 713-570-6736. And without any further delay, we're going to jump right into today's episode. This young man who I've had the pleasure of meeting all the way from Ohio, Lourdes University. He serves as the head coach of the Esports, the Grey Wolves Esports squad, and that's none other than Mr. Lemar Daniels. How you doing today, sir?
Hey, Mike, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on today.
All right, thank you for making yourself available. And look, with all of the shutdowns that have been going on, I noticed that the NAIA has just made a huge announcement.
Yep.
Has that affected the esports teams?
It affected us a lot stronger in spring than it's looking like fall. A number of schools had to shut down in the spring because I think just a number of esports teams throughout the collegiate scene had to shut down. I think just because of how quickly everything happened and how just like out of nowhere things just closed. But I think a lot of schools that have esports programs have kind of been preparing for anything and everything. And I think we're going to see a lot more college programs be able, at least esports programs, be able to stay open and compete. The conference that we're in, we've had talks every other week about, checking in and seeing which schools are good, which schools, might not be good. And so far, we've been pretty solid. It seems like most schools are running pretty well, and they should be fine as much. Hopefully affect us in a positive way as it could possibly give, collegiate esports a little bit more exposure going forward.
That's what I was thinking, because no contact is involved other than when you're dealing with teammates, and I'm pretty sure there will be some social distancing involved with that. And what I wanted to ask you, and I don't know if I did, and if I have, please forgive me for the redundancy, but are the esports broken down in divisions such as your athletic programs from like FBS down to NAIA, or is it just right across the board?
They're not. We are right across the board, and we're even stronger across the board because a lot of the competitions that you compete in, if you're a varsity program, a lot of times you're playing against club programs as well. So, for example, we're a varsity program here at Lourdes, but let's say a school like University of Michigan, right? They could have a club program. A lot of the major tournaments we'll be in will have a mix between some varsity programs and some club programs. Where if we go completely in the opposite direction of divisions and everybody is kind of mixed together, you do have some big tournaments have like a varsity division and like a club division. But for the most part, most of your tournaments, everybody's kind of all mixed together.
Okay, and so I'm trying to make the difference between a varsity and a club. Yeah. A varsity club would be one that is actually sponsored by the athletic department, I'm assuming?
Yeah, so varsity is sponsored in any type, way, shape, or form by your school. So that could be your house in athletics, or you're in student life, or you're in rec sports, right? But you might be giving scholarships, or you have a staff member directly in charge of the program.
Okay.
Club teams are found at usually a lot of the bigger schools. They'll have club programs, and it's just like any other club that you can find around campus. They'll have an esports club, and those kids will all compete with each other in different games, and they'll represent the school in a number of tournaments, right? But they won't have scholarships. They won't have a staff member in charge. It's really just ran by the student.
Okay, now are the fees the same?
You said the fees?
Yes, for entry fees of the tournaments?
Yep. Yeah, so any tournament, usually they don't designate between club and varsity, and that's a benefit that varsity has. Usually you have some type of financial backing to be able to help out your students with that. But for example, I know we went to one of the major tournaments every year is called Hugh Fest. It's held in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and there were some club teams that were there, right, and there were some varsity teams, and we went as a varsity program, so I was able to, the school covered our travel and our food and everything like that. And at the same time, there are some club teams that are there that they're like, yeah, we had to fundraise for this ourselves, and we have to, get all the travel and the hotels and everything on their own as well.
Wow, that is pretty unique. So it's almost like the roles have been reversed when it deals with the smaller institutions versus the big institutions, because usually it's the big institutions that have everything, but now they have to fend for themselves with the esports. Now, is that probably determined because they might not be taking it as serious as maybe some of the smaller universities?
Yeah. I definitely think that that's the case. Some of the smaller universities, not to sugarcoat anything, but it does help for recruitment, right? A lot of the major, large-scale universities don't necessarily need an esports program to recruit students because they're already fine with that. Like University of Michigan doesn't need an esports program to get in students. They'll get students no matter what. At the same time, a lot of these major universities are just as good as some of the varsity programs because if you have 40,000 students on your campus, odds are you're going to find some kid that's pretty good at whatever game you want to play, right? It's just
right.
The odds that you're playing with that large amount of students. So it's really interesting. Like you have some very, very good teams that are varsity programs. You have some very, very good teams that are club programs. And it's kind of a mix between everything.
I know the last time that you and I got together with Coach Eaton, you broke down the average cost is between $1,200 and $1,300 for a computer to be able to compete at a high level. And further breaking that down, how many computers do you need per event to be able to compete, on a highly competitive level?
So it depends on what game you're playing, right? And then it kind of depends on how you run your program. As far as the most popular esports, no game has more people competing at one time than Overwatch, which is 6-on-6. So you could have an esports program with just 6 computers, but the problem is you want to practice with multiple teams, and you can't have more people. Like you couldn't have people in there at the same time. Right? You can only have structured out practice time for this team practices then, this team practices then, right? It get a little difficult to kind of spread out the practice time. Plus, you kind of want to have some computers for you have kids that want to play in on their free time, or they want to come in and practice on their own, right? You don't want to have just bare minimum and be like, these are this, and then you can never have anybody in there on any free time. But like if you need the most that any game has is Overwatch with 6. But it depends on the game. League of Legends has 5v5, 5-on-5. Rocket League has 3-on-3. It really depends on the game, and it really dictates how many you need to be able to compete.
Okay, now on average, Lamar, how many games are actually in competition with this esports division, and how do you determine what game becomes an official esport game?
Honestly, that's a great question. I would say on average, so just like with traditional athletics, right, you have your more popular games than your other ones, right? A lot more schools have basketball than schools that have water polo. It's the same way in esports. You have probably the 3 most popular are League of Legends, Overwatch, and Rocket League. Most of your schools are going to have those 3. And then from there, honestly, it's a pretty big drop to games like Counter-Strike, games like Call of Duty, games like Hearthstone, and then maybe some Fortnite as well. So I would say on average, most programs will have about 5. And I guess for myself, the way I look at it, as far as like who I want to recruit for us, is what programs are really going to be able to provide a value back to the program. What games are some like there used to be Madden and 2K leagues out there, but there really isn't anymore. And so I'm not necessarily looking to recruit for that, because if I have somebody in who's playing Madden, like how do I have them compete on the collegiate side if there's no collegiate competition? So I look at, what's the viability of the game, and really, is this something that really has a strong scene around it? And I mean, in retrospect, you could be like, hey, not every game, but most competitive games could have some esports scene. But there's a lot of games that the professional side is built out a lot better than the collegiate side. And those are like Madden, those are like 2K, those are like Counter-Strike, Call of Duty. All those are built out a lot better on the professional side than they are the collegiate side. There's a small collegiate scene for it, but it really isn't too much that makes it valuable.
Okay. We're speaking right now with Lemar Daniels, the head coach at Lourdes University for the Esports program. And I got to admit, Lemar, I'm learning more and becoming more intrigued with this deal. Good. And it's really, really fascinating to me. And when you talk about this, the recruiting aspect, how do you go about recruiting a guy? I know coaches go to Huddle for athletes. Mm-hmm. What do you go to? Is it Stitch? Or Twitch? What is it called?
Yeah,
these guys?
Twitch.
Okay,
Yeah.
I knew it was an itch somewhere in there. And so, how do you recruit these guys? And how do you lure them to become part of the Grey Wolves program?
Honestly, that is a great question. So I will. There's a number of different ways you can. One of the biggest one is that I use is NCSA. NCSA is like a recruiting website that had traditional student athletes, but now has an esports section on there. So I use that as well. Also posting in Discord. So Discord is a social media platform that is very similar to if anybody out there use Microsoft Slack. It's pretty similar. In which case you can have a server, right? And so, for example, we have the Lourdes Esports server. That server, I can have different channels, whatever I want to focus on. Whether it's my Overwatch team, my League of Legends team, whether it's I want to have a channel for videos, or if somebody is streaming live, I can have a channel for different things. And I can give people roles based on their role in our program, right? So let's say a fan joins our Discord, right, and just kind of wants to hang out with the team. I can do that, but I can have team members have a specific role so that channels are only viewable to them. So every esports entity out there has some kind of Discord. It is just how esports is. You can't really be in esports without a Discord. And so there's a lot of them out there that help with college recruiting, right? Whether it's one specific game will have a recruiting. So maybe I go to the Overwatch Discord, right? And I post in there, hey, college, I'm looking to recruit this certain player XYZ for my team. So those two are like the primary ways. Discord, at least for me, Discord, NCSA. Also, word of mouth. Word of mouth is probably the biggest out of any recruiting on the college esports right now. That's how a lot of people end up being able to get noticed. Is that, hey, so and so, my friend, I actually did a project on this when I was in grad school about literally college esports recruiting. And the study I did showed that word of mouth was the primary way of recruiting happen. It's just like, because we're so new, right? Some kids out there who are pretty good just don't know that you can go to college to, play for this. So a lot of times they'll be their friends telling them like, hey, I'm going to this college, you should come with me because I want to play esports. And they're like, oh, really? And then that's kind of how the word gets around a little bit.
Wow. And a lot of these guys probably are unaware of just how good they are until they start competing with other guys.
Well, I mean, most teams will have some competitive ranking system that kind of shows you, right, where you are in reality to kind of everybody else in the world, which is really beneficial for. That's one thing that I like about recruiting with esports. That there's a number, right, that is given to you that legitimately shows, on the most part, how good you are. That's very helpful for instead of, hey, let me try to just watch I have to do my due diligence, right, and watch some film and stuff. But it really helps out if I'm able to see, hey, this guy's number is a lot higher than this guy's number, so he should be, by all intents and purposes, better than the other guy, right?
In some cases, you would think.
Yeah.
Because not one thing I do know in the world of cyber activity, there are some guys who might lack, let's say, the word integrity, and sometimes they do these little hacks and cheats to boost up their deal. Have you come across that? And then if you do, is that going to fall under the disciplinary code of the said universities and that person is removed?
Yeah, so I haven't come across that as much. And this is something I actually, when I was doing that project research, asking them, what happens if, somebody's trying to get recruited and they turn out, it's called smurfing. Sometimes either color smurfing or like using hacks or something. They're not as good as they said they were. A lot of college coaches, will make sure that that player plays with their team, right? And so that they're able to really actually see, hey, let me scout you for a little bit. We'll have you play with our team before, me providing you any scholarship. So I can just double check and make sure you're as good as you say you are. Um, I, I just, I definitely know that for a lot of schools, it's just like, hey, you tell us that you're this good, right? But you actually turn out not to be, or like we can tell that you blatantly lied. Then we have the right to revoke our scholarship or things like that. So,
Okay.
that's kind of some of the ways, yeah.
Now, when you're in competition with club programs, not saying that they would, but they don't have any supervision, they're kind of governing themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Is it more likely that you would, if there were some scandalous attempts, it would be coming from the club area?
It's a possibility, yeah. It's always a possibility within our scene that there's, somebody who is, hacking or, using some cheats or something like that. It always is. It's kind of just the nature
part of the territory.
Yeah, it's part of the territory, right? And, maybe sometimes you can tell, sometimes you can't, and you just have to have faith in whether you're playing against a club or a varsity program that things are being ran the right way.
Okay, we're talking right now with Lemar Daniels of Lourdes University, the esports head coach. And man, like I say, I'm totally fascinated about this subject. And it's amazing. This is just getting off the ground. How is money generated through esports? I know when you're doing athletics, you can tie a brand with a certain product. How is the money generated in the esport world?
So for at least for the professional side, right? And collegiate esports is no different than collegiate athletics, right? Most programs, unless you're like one of the biggest 20, 25 programs, right? At the end of the day, financially, athletics just, take a hit on you, right? So you have the extra value as far as like the social aspect it brings for your university, pride, and then just the ability to provide, scholarship offerings to the student. On the professional side, a lot of it is advertisement. That's where most of that's where a large amount of the money is made, like most, if not all, of all the money that is made in esports is made through advertisement. You imagine that you have, you're having an event that it lasts 3 hours, right? And that's all on the screen. You can have an ad, placed on that screen for as long as you want, right? It's not like, unless like imagine you're going in person to a basketball game, right? You're looking at the court. You're not always looking directly at the action. But for esports, it's easy to always have ads on in certain areas, and it's not as looked down upon as far as like imagine you're watching basketball on TV, right? And there's an ad the entire time on there. People get annoyed. Esports is kind of more accepted a little bit, so that's where the money's made, usually advertisement.
Okay, so then I guess my next question would be to determine what that actual advertiser would pay to be on that sponsorship is going to vary on the size of the event or even the size of the institution?
Yeah, it's going to be the size of the event, the size of the company you're working with, the notoriety of the game. Like some games will, if you're advertising for League of Legends, right, one of their championships, it's going to be a lot more expensive than it will be for, say, anything like, Madden, right, or 2K. So it really...
Man, look, entertain me, man. What are the price ranges, like you say, for a Madden advertisement versus the one you just mentioned?
Ooh, that's a great question. I'm not even going to hold you. I don't know for sure. But I'll say that I'll kind of compare it to this, right? If you're going to advertise for the League of Legends World Championship, that's going to be like the Super Bowl, right? But then Madden Championship or a 2K Championship is going to be something closer to, say, the MLS Championship, Major League Soccer.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's still good money to be made, but not as much money.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Man, this is absolutely amazing. Now, when you're talking about scouting a guy, how do you scout a guy on a video game by how quick he gets killed, how well he, works in a team, I guess, with assignments. And I'm assuming my son played, I think it's called Fortnite, whatever it is.
Okay. Yeah.
And you can hear them fussing all the time that somebody's always getting killed, and they'll smoke one team, and then they'll have pretty breeze on another team, and they get their hat brought to them by another team. So is that how you determine on scouting this guy? What are you looking for when you're scouting a guy to offer them a scholarship?
So the main thing that I look for is the rank, right? So let's say my team is around, let's say Overwatch, right? Let's say my average team is a master's level, right? If I'm going to bring you on my varsity team, I'm going to want you to at least be around that level. Whereas, you might not be in that level, you might still be comparable, but there is still something to be said for people who have been able to work their way up to that level. So most games have a ranking system. For example, they'll usually go like bronze, silver, gold, platinum, diamond, masters, or grandmaster, something like that, something along those lines.
Okay.
And so, like, my team's master's average, I'm not going to bring somebody who's gold because it just doesn't fit, what we're looking for on the team, right? So that's the first thing I'm looking for. I want to make sure that your average kind of fits, or where you're at kind of fits in where the team is at. Now, if I get to the point where, like, hey, my rosters are full, and I have everybody that are kind of like averages right now, then I'll kind of, at that point, then we'll look at tryouts, and we'll scout based on things like, what's your communication like with the team. Obviously, you'll look at the in-game stuff, right? The positioning in the game, your just natural talent or your skill within the game. We'll also look at how do you communicate with the team, right? It's called your comp. How is your comp, right? What's your personality like? Does your personality fit with the team? Usually, if you get to the point where you're a program and you have the ability to be able to have specific tryouts for one team or another, part of it is kind of be like, hey, what role do you play? And we kind of assess you versus the other person, right? What's your in-game skill? What's your position? What's your in-game communication like? What's your comps like? Things like that. That's kind of how the scouting would go on here.
Okay, very good. Once again, we're talking with Lemar Daniels, Lourdes University, the esports head coach. Now, Lemar, I'm scratching my head over here, man, because I'm like, unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, when you break this thing down even further, and I was joking when I said it, but then realized there was some truth to it. You have workouts and conditioning for these guys. Can you explain that and some of the calisthenics that are involved with your esports team?
Yeah, so I was a former college athlete myself. I ran track, and I played volleyball in college. I was also part of acrobatics. And my biggest passion has always been college student athlete development. And that's kind of what got me into wanting to work with student athletes and getting into coaching as well. Our team, our program, we do have workouts. We work out 3 times a week for an hour, and we kind of, focus on different things, right? One day it might be core, might be cardio, might be lifting, and we try to mix in the 3. Sometimes we kind of decide to have some fun, and we play basketball with each other, something like that. I do it specifically because I feel as though it is my job as a coach not to just develop them, right? That student athlete development, not just develop you in the game, but also outside the game, right? And life. I try to keep it as the word I'm looking for, as well-rounded, open-rounded as possible, because I have a wide variety of former fitness level on my team. When we started workouts last year, I had some people who had never been in the gym before, and some people who have been like, yeah, I played basketball and football for 4 years in high school. I know all this stuff, right? I try to keep it as close to the middle as possible to make sure everybody's as engaged as possible.
Okay.
So, yeah, kind of what we do.
Okay, very good. And everybody has to, it's all about working out the mind, the body, and the soul.
Yep.
And why not with the esports program team? Now, normally, what is the size of your roster for your varsity and for your sub-varsity program?
So for us, for our varsity program, we're going to be around 25 to 30. And then if we build on that, we'll be having like JV teams for specific games. We'll probably be looking at having a JV team for Overwatch this year. And then hopefully as the years go, we can build a JV team for League of Legends and Rocket League.
Okay.
But the entire program together is about 25 to 30 students.
Okay, 25. Now, are all of those guys on scholarship?
Yes. Yeah. Everybody on our team will be on the scholarship, unless they're part of another sport. I do have some dual sport athletes here who are, good enough that, they like to play their sport, but they also wanted to be involved in what we're doing. In that case, their primary sport will be providing their scholarship. But besides that, everybody else on our team has.
Okay, so the range of scholarships, if you're allowed to share that, what's the monetary value on these scholarships for these guys?
So we are actually, I'll say like the average that we're around. Sports at Lourdes are around $6,000. We do have the benefit of not having travel as far as our costs. So there might be a couple of times we're able to kind of, at least on the esports side, look to bless ourselves a little bit. If we have somebody who's really going to help benefit the program. But for the most part, most of our sports around here are around 6,000 average rate, right? So if I wanted to bring somebody at a very high level, I'll have to make sure that I'm balancing that out with whoever I bring in on the other side to kind of make sure the average is up there.
Okay, very good, man. That is pretty interesting. For those that are listening right now, Lourdes is a private institution now. It's not cheap to go there. So you're hearing $6,000. It does help. But,
yeah,
man, that is something. Now, do you guys charge for people to watch you guys in action?
We don't. So all of our sports that we have, well, for the most part, family and people are able to kind of come in for free. Visitors and stuff will have to pay. But as far as esports, we've only really had like one main event. We were working on having more in-person events, and then COVID hit. So it was a little difficult to do that. But at least for us, we don't charge, and then we stream all of our matches on our Twitch. And so people are always able to kind of check it out online, watch us online. Really helpful for like parents who are kind of, not able to travel. That's one of the cool things about esports, right? Like parents are always able to watch their child compete because we just stream it online. And so like no matter where you're at, you're still able to kind of watch everything. And you don't really feel like you're missing out as much, right? If your child plays soccer, right, you might be able to watch online if the school streams it, but it's not the same as being there. But as far as with like esports, you'd be watching the screen regardless. So like it's still a pretty cool thing for us to be able to provide.
Man, that is just totally fascinating to me. On average, what would a viewing look like during a stream for a competition?
Wow, that's actually a good question. I can't remember how many. We were probably on average 15 to 20. But I mean, we're a smaller school, right, with smaller kind of team size. And hopefully with us, because I believe this is our first time really streaming our matches this past year. So hopefully as we grow, the channel will grow and everything, and like the fan base will grow. But as far as like, it depends, as far as like professional esport wise, like it really depends on the event. But like some of the larger events, like League of Legends, will constantly have 100,000 people watching their matches over the weekend.
Wow.
It's pretty
well,
awesome.
I could imagine, though, that especially with smaller institutions and even larger institutions, you get more value on the replay from the event than sometimes an actual live event, depending on what time these events are being held. And I heard you mention that you have a channel. For those who are listening, what is the channel and how they can go and watch some of the rebroadcast?
So on our Twitch, if you search Lourdes Esports, it should be all one word, LOURDES, Esports, ESPORTS. You'll be able to find our channel there. There might be an underscore between the two of them, so if that one doesn't work, try that out with the Lourdes_Esports.
Okay.
And then our Twitter's the same. Twitter's probably like where we have most of our interaction. And Twitter's the exact same, where it's Lourdes_Esports there as well.
You can actually watch your competitions live on Twitter?
On Twitch you can.
Okay, I was going to say, you got to explain that one to me. I didn't know how you can do that, man.
On our Twitch, you can watch all of our content.
Yeah. Man, that is so fun. Now, do you guys take advantage of the YouTube channel, if you have one, that once the Twitch event is done, that you transfer it over to YouTube?
That's something I'd love for us to do, and something I'm looking for us to do is I'd love for us to be able to be like, hey, we had a match. We're going to cut some highlights up, and then we'll put it on our YouTube.
Okay.
But something that I've been able to do. This first year was just kind of just getting things set in stone. But, I definitely would love, as we grow the program, to kind of be able to be like, yeah, let's have a YouTube channel where we put our highlights from all of the matches.
And that is truly fascinating. That's when IT has to be your best friend, right?
Yeah, but honestly, a lot of the players I have on our teams have a lot of that knowledge as well. A lot of if anybody checks out our Twitter, a lot of the graphics that we have or the videos are done by students, right? And I kind of let our program be training grounds for people who want to get involved. I have a number of my students that want to do marketing or want to do social media stuff. So I'm like, hey, why not do some stuff for us? You immediately kind of get the practice of it, and you have a portfolio for yourself when you graduate.
Right.
You're be like, hey, I've done all of this stuff for my program when I was in college. You immediately are able to provide proof of the skill level you have.
Now, is there any possible way that you can actually do some play-by-play broadcasting with these events?
Oh, yeah, so we do. We have a local student who helps us out. He goes to the University of Toledo, and he reached out to me. He emailed me, and kind of the same thing, right? Providing that opportunity to students. He emailed me. He was like, hey, doing broadcast journalism. He's really passionate about esports, and he'd love to kind of get involved with us. So we brought him in, and, to kind of get him, that experience, right? He comes in, and he, does the broadcasting for our game. And then sometimes we'll have another student help him out on whether the color side or the play-by-play side. That's the cool thing I've been able to kind of provide is, or Lourdes Esports has been able to provide is that experience for people, no matter kind of what aspect of esports they're looking into. If I can find some way of getting them the practice with us, then by all means, why not? So yeah, we actually have somebody do that for us.
So you actually hear their commentary over the gameplay as it's going on. So you just pipe their audio into the stream.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, man, that is totally a 21st century deal, man. I feel like a dinosaur over here, buddy. but a good dinosaur. I'm not gonna go out that easy. You know what I'm saying? Lemar, it has truly been a fascinating journey, and I got to keep in contact with you, man, because now I've gotten this esport bug. And as far as I'm concerned, you're going to be my esport liaison. And I do have to ask this question.
Yep.
Nationwide, I know that you probably don't have a precise number, but how many esport programs are involved nationwide on the college campuses?
Varsity programs, I think we're at about 200. Don't quote me on this. I think around 200, maybe pushing 250. As far as club programs, just about every, I won't say just about every school, but I would say a good amount of schools, universities out there. Maybe 3 out of every 4 universities probably has an esports program, whether it's varsity or club, maybe even more than that. It's very, very well represented, and some of that, certain teams are good in certain games, and certain teams compete in certain games. Like traditional sports, right? Some teams are better in some sports than others, right? So,
absolutely. Well, my friend, you and the Grey Wolves, you're going to have to keep me in tune and in touch with everything that's going on as we can further discover the world of esports on a deeper level. Yep. You have been officially dubbed as our liaison here at the Open Mic Broadcast Network. So we truly, truly appreciate you making yourself available for today, and we'll give you some closing thoughts and comments at this moment.
I appreciate it. I'm humbled by the opportunity to chat. I will say that esports is definitely a passion of mine, but even more so, I just love working with student athletes. That's been a passion that I've had ever since I was a student athlete. And I'm excited to kind of mix my two passions of student athlete development and esports with also my knowledge of coaching. It's kind of a perfect fit.
Yes, sir.
Yep, love the school we have here. Lourdes University has been an amazing fit for myself. I grew up in the area, and me coming home for this job has just been a blessing. So, for those of you who want to follow us, like I said, Lourdes_esports on Twitter. That's where most of anything that we discuss or post it will be found there. Also, there's a link to our Discord if anybody feels wanting to join as well. So, yeah.
Okay, now I just imagine, and I'm not sure if this is the case or not, being the Grey Wolves, I know you guys have to have a howling sound or something when something goes good, right?
I think that maybe on like some videos or something that gets put out there, or like maybe like during a basketball game, we might have a soundboard that does that. I don't know if there's like a full wide, this is our thing.
Man, come on, man. You got the esports working. You got uniforms with you guys. You guys are working out. You got to have a wolf howl, man.
I maybe back in the day, hey, this has still been my first year. It's been a year for me, a year and about a month for me on the job. So I'm still learning the ropes a little bit. I don't fully know, all the traditions of Lourdes athletics. I'm learning. I'm getting it.
Okay, well, look, let's for name's sake, let's start a tradition from the Mike Prince Show and the Open Mic Broadcast Tour. Give me one of the Grey Wolves howls, man.
Y'all, you're ready to howl for you. All right. Woo! There you go.
That sounds like a puppy, man.
I mean, I'm still in the office. I'm not going to, go on. I gotta get a little subdued right now.
Well, look, man, we truly appreciate you being a good sport with the esports, and we wish you guys nothing but success. Keep us in tune as things develop, my friend, and we'll have you back real soon. He is Mr. Lemar Daniels, the head coach of esports, the Grey Wolves of Lourdes University. I am the radio guy, Dr. Mike Prince. Of course, our social media handles for Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter are all at the Mike Prince Show. The YouTube channel is Open Mic Broadcast Network, and our 24-hour dial-in message line, 713-570-6736. The time has come where I must exit stage left. Until the next time, you guys be blessed. We'll see you on the other side.